Is it a natural business for them? No, I don't think that acquiring is a natural business for banks, especially in a fragmented market like Croatia and the other surrounding countries, because we are, every man for its own here. We don't have central switches, infrastructures. Every man has its own acquiring, technology, terminals. They're that quite separate.
So you have 3 terminals on the table.
I'm at one point.
T for 2.
I wanted to use your extensive knowledge working with banks, paytechs, and big retailers, because you worked with them a lot and you still work with them a lot.
Yeah.
To talk more about the relationship between paytech and banks.
Okay.
Because what is interesting and what I'm seeing is, like, first, there always have been some confrontation between both. Is it volunteer or not? I don't know, but I've always feel a tension between banks and paytechs, like how the way that they are interacting together. And secondly, and correct me if I'm wrong, and potentially you will correct me, but I always feel like banks never took a big interest in retail payment. For them, it was a foot on the door, like to sell something more, to sell more services. And so at the end, it just felt, okay, it's a cost for me. It's not going to bring me business. I can get this business from another way. So I'm just going to sell everything or acquiring services to someone else. And this is why I think we got a concentration of actors, listen to the paytechs. And it's the perfect example of the destiny of Nexi or Worldline. This is what happened, roughly. It's like banks decided to sell everything to them. But now with the success of Adyen and Stripe, and because it's on the mouth of everyone, did the banks finally change their mind and decided to go back and says, okay, retail payment is finally interesting for me?
This needs to be answered based on which region are you talking about. If you're talking about Croatia and these countries here, we have a specific situation in being transition countries, and here the banks have been sole owner of the acquiring business from the beginning.
Okay, it was a regulatory requirement?
No, but I mean, there were no Alien, Stripes, or Six, or whatever, those companies that were already established on the risk market. Here, in this part of the world, I mean, they are providing financial services, having cash, having everything. It was natural for them to bundle it and to offer at first part physical payments. Later came the e-commerce. E-commerce became much more, let's say, decoupled from the banks. A lot of pay gateways, PayPax, etc. But the acquiring, each bank had its own POS stack and transaction. Is it a natural business for them? No, I don't think that acquiring is a natural business for banks, especially in a fragmented market like Croatia and the other surrounding countries, because we are, every man for its own here. We don't have central switches, infrastructures. Every man has its own acquiring, technology, terminals. They're quite separate.
So you have 3 terminals on the table.
I'm at one point. There is another thing to that story, the installments.
It's related to installments.
Related to installments, which are client based. Then, if you go through schemas, this doesn't work. So it has to be terminal connected directly to the acquirer. And installments are very popular here, which is basically leading me to another part of this, like this clash that you are seeing between paytech and banks. And buy now, pay later was a really great example, because paytech entered into the area which is, let's say, natural for the banks. I mean, from the beginning, banks are here to keep them and money. I mean, and everybody else they should their job. This is their job. And that BNPL came, well, here we want money, but we will just forget about all the other stuff related to loans. And that did not turn out very well. I mean, we are specific here in Croatia, buy now, pay later off, because we have like 36 installments interest free.
Yeah, and developed a developed market with competitive market, I would say.
Competitive and developed. And
Yeah.
there have been some tries, but they died miserably. And there's a combination that all paytech should fall. Banks should be there to provide the basic service. So they have, banking license, they can hold money, have the accounts, have the infrastructure, and you guys build on top of it. And I think this is the right direction because it's hard for them to be agile and to
I was about to come on that, so
Yeah.
any quick transitions.
Yeah, I'm very open to talk about that because I was in the banking business also and for several years. And it was like always, yeah, they're slow, they don't understand, they don't look, they understand very often.
But isn't it a bit too late? Because I was about to ask you that, I've said, yeah, they are reconsidering their position, At the end, win the war, it's like, or it's only a battle.
Well, I mean, ADN is in payments, okay? Okay, they have like this banking part that they want to introduce, but I mean, there cannot be only one, and there cannot be more. Well, and banks, I mean, the funny thing, if you look, for example, I think in 2024, they did a survey on digital banking in Germany, where some of the banks were ahead of N26 and some of the digital players. And I had the chance to work with some of them. And I had the chance to dig deeper under the surface to see how bad it is. And if you look at the last 2 years, you will see a lot of them being scrutinized by the regulators. Only because they do not do well the KYC, onboarding, procedures, this, and then everything that is like bread and butter for that.
So you expect a sort of backlash from the regulators.
If you talk about backlash, yeah, backlash will happen to those who are not doing things properly, which is happening for the last 2 years, actually, regardless is payment or some banking services.
So you think it's not related to payment, but much more broader on fintechs?
On fintechs, going into regulation, because regulation is expensive. They had say I'm leveling, the same fields.
Yeah, and this is always, where it's it puts the business of fintechs at risk. Actually, it's the cost of compliance. It's where it's getting complicated. It's just when you want to scale your business, you can start with not taking care of a lot of compliance. But if you want to build a serious business, compliance become essential, and when it becomes essential, it becomes expensive.
Yes, I expect a lot more collaboration instead of going out. And to cut the long story short, banks providing background services and rationale with the SEPA IP and everything, and the paytechs are lighting on that infrastructure.
You always make my transition, which is perfect, so I shouldn't do my work. I did the purpose fine. Okay, so I wanted to remember the conversation we just had. And I wanted to ask you, about how do you see industry moving before 2030? And you just already start, kind of.
If you asked me 1 year ago, I would give you a straightforward answer. If you ask me today, which you are,
Which I'm doing.
which you are doing, I don't know what to tell you, Joanna. And you know why? Because of things that are happening right now.
Yeah, because of the geopolitical tensions, because of many things that we used to consider as
EPI and everything. I mean, there was this great article that you commented on UPI, which I'm always quoting as a bad example of what is being done in Europe right now. And what happened just 2 days ago, the association is asking for, additional payments to be imposed on those transactions which are free right now.
But don't you think for the UPI example, which is Unified Payment Interface, which is used in India, it's an instant payment scheme, is also a question. I mean, they were not at the same state as us. I mean, in terms of payment, of development of digital payments, I think UPI was a great first thing for India and first step because they had nothing. So you had to start with something. And then, so you needed to find something. So bring people, adopting digital payments. So how do you do it? Like by offering free transactions, roughly, even if, it led to a concentration of the market. But what I always say also, and this is something, I mean, you could also consider that payment is not, it could be for free. I mean, it's just, of course, you don't make a market out of it, but it says that, yeah, it's an infrastructure.
End of the day, for us consumers, it is free. So if something is, 100 euros and I swipe my card, it will take 100 euros from my account.
So what you're saying is like somebody must pay
Somebody must pay.
for the innovation.
At the end of the day, somebody must pay. I just want to end with allow SEPA instant payment. I think those are the great rails
Yeah.
because, if they will remain in this shape, I mean, we have the issue of 10 seconds and charge breaks and everything. But I think it could change a lot if being implemented properly and gives a room really for a lot of innovation on the payment market. Not how this will be done, it remains to be seen in the next, I would say, 1 year.
Perfect. Thank you very much. You did well the exercise. I mean, it's just you are a deficient guest because you did you nearly didn't have. I mean, I could have just thrown the question and leave the room. You could have done it. So thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to have you at.
Ryan, thank you for inviting me. It was really a pleasure for me to be here.
Thank you.